I think she has gone. Honorable members, let's move to item 3.2. Let's go to the national economy, please. We have a loan. We have a loan.
Item 3.
We have a loan, please.
Item 3.2. Request to borrow up to special drawing rights 72.3 million to equivalent of US dollars 99.56 million from the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, and US dollars 30 million from the OPEC Fund for International Development, OFID, to finance the National Oilseeds Project.
Honorable Chair, National Economy. Honorable Bumba.
It's laying. Oh.
Honorable.
It's laying.
Ah, there she is. Laying of papers. Okay. Where is the Agriculture Minister or his representative? Okay, go to the next item. Item 4.
Item 4, motion for adoption of the report of the Committee on Rules, Privileges and Discipline on the proposed amendments to the Rules of Procedure of Parliament.
Honorable Chair, Rules Committee.
Thank you very much. Right Honorable Speaker, colleagues, members of Parliament, this is a report of the Committee on Rules, Privileges and Discipline on the proposed amendments to the Rules of Procedure of Parliament. Before I proceed, allow me to lay on table a copy of the report, the proposed amendments and the annexures attached thereunder. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, Rule 172 of the Rules of Procedure of Parliament mandates the Committee on Rules, Privileges and Discipline by order of the House to review the Rules of Procedure of Parliament from time to time and to make such recommendations to the House for amendments as the Committee considers necessary for the satisfactory functioning and efficient transaction of the business of the House and its committees. Pursuant to Rule 172, Sub-Rule 1C, the Speaker on the 28th January 2021 directed the committee to review the rules and report back to the House. The committee executed the task and hereby presents its report to the House for consideration. Methodology. The committee perused the rules of procedure and identified.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The chairperson has cited the Rule 172(1)(c). According to this rule, the review will be done by order of the House. My understanding of the order of the House is that there will be motion and Parliament will vote on it to order. The chairperson says, on the directive of the Speaker. The procedure issue I am raising is whether the chairperson can go ahead to conduct work not ordered by the House as the rule provides, but as instructed by the Speaker. That's the procedural issue I am raising.
Honour members, the Speaker is the custodian of rules of this House, and over time we have identified areas that need to be amended. That's why we asked the committee to go and make some proposals. So the proposals have come to this House. You will study them, discuss them, and they will be amended according to what will be the outcome of the House. Proceed with the report, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker, for your wise ruling. The committee reviewed a report from the technical committee.
Other procedure. Maybe, Madam Speaker, I didn't put my question right. The question I am raising is a question of law. Whether the Speaker in this case becomes the House. And that's the guidance I am seeking from you. Because the subject matter is a very serious matter concerning this Parliament. And therefore we need to follow our rules as they are written. Otherwise, to disregard the rules as they are and you bring more, for me, doesn't make sense. So the procedural issue I'm raising, Madam Speaker, is for you to interpret whether the Speaker has become the House. And therefore we are now working not on the order of the House, but on the directive of the Speaker.
Honourable Member, proceed. Yes, Honourable Otieno.
The committee 3 considered some specific directives from the House and incorporated the recommendations in the report. 4, received submissions from some members of Parliament, and 5, compiled this report that it now presents to this House for consideration. 2.0, observations and recommendations. 2.1, administration of oath. Rule 3 provides for the clerk to Parliament to administer the oath of allegiance and the oath of a member of Parliament to new members of Parliament prior to the first sitting of Parliament. In subsequent cases, after constitution of the House, this rule requires the clerk to administer the oath before the House. In the recent past, however, situations have arisen where the oath had to be urgently administered during periods when a duly constituted Parliament was on recess. Such circumstances necessitated the oath to be administered before the Speaker in places within the precincts of Parliament other than the House. The committee proposes that the rules should be amended to provide for the administration of the oath before the Speaker during periods when Parliament is on recess or in situations where a member-elect is unable to reach the parliamentary buildings for reasons beyond his or her control. 2. Election of Speaker and Deputy Speaker. The committee on the 10th March 2021 received a directive from the House to make proposals on how to curb the use of foul language against different contenders for the positions of Speaker and Deputy Speaker in the 11th Parliament. The committee, in its consideration of the matter, found that the positions of Speaker and Deputy Speaker are held in such high esteem that the candidates must not be seen in situations that could compromise their dignity. It therefore follows that public campaigns should not be permitted because there are high chances of hurting the dignity of the individuals concerned and in turn the institution of Parliament. It therefore recommends that Rule 5 should be amended to bar candidates from the said positions from public campaigns. 2.3. resignation of a speaker or deputy speaker. The rules of procedure currently provide for the election of speaker and deputy speaker of parliament, but the only exit from these positions envisaged is by impeachment under Rule 107. It was observed that rules do not provide for voluntary exit from these offices. The committee notes that this gap needs to be rectified and therefore proposes that the rule should be amended to provide for resignation from the offices of Speaker and Deputy Speaker. 2.4. Sittings of the House. The size of Parliament has increased over time, with the 11th Parliament expected to be 72 members, bigger than the 10th Parliament. It's, however, a matter of concern that the hours of sitting of Parliament have remained the same. With a view to creating more opportunities for members to speak in the House, the committee proposes that Mondays should be made sitting days in addition to Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. The committee therefore proposes that Rule 19, Sub-Rule 2 should be amended to include Monday as a parliamentary sitting day. 2.5. Statement of business by the leader of government business. Rule 28 requires the leader of government business on every last sitting day of the week to make a statement in the House regarding the government business of the succeeding week. The committee observes that the rule is currently inactive, and this limits the participation of members of Parliament in debates of the House because they are not given opportunity to sufficiently prepare for parliamentary sittings. The committee proposes that the rules should be amended to make it mandatory for the clerk to ensure that Rule 28 is reflected on the order paper of every last sitting day of the week. 2.6. Parliamentary Calendar. The Speaker, at the beginning of the second session of the 10th Parliament, announced a parliamentary calendar that gave priority to different categories of business during each meeting of the session as follows. First meeting, prioritization of bills. Second meeting, prioritization of committee reports. And third meeting, prioritization of the budget process. The committee welcomed the calendar, but in addition to the current arrangement, it proposes that exclusive periods should be allocated to committee activities, plenary sittings, and recess within a given meeting in a session. The proposed amendment will enable members to concentrate on one aspect of parliamentary business at a given time. This is likely to improve the efficiency of Parliament, with members being more available and prepared for most parliamentary business, and at the same time more accountable to their constituents. It therefore proposes that Rule 25 be amended as such. 2.7. Prime Minister's time. Prime Minister's time provided for under Rule 41 was borrowed from the House of Commons in the United Kingdom. However, the committee notes that the Prime Minister in Uganda does not have the same powers as the Prime Minister in the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister is the head of government and chief executive of the country. Therefore, he is fully answerable for the actions of his government, whereas in Uganda, this is not the case. In Uganda, the Prime Minister is answerable to the President, who is both the head of state and head of government as per Article 98(1) of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. The committee observes that under the current arrangements, answers during Prime Minister's question time may not be conclusive because on certain issues, the Prime Minister may have to consult with the President and the sector ministers. This makes the procedure not as effective as it is in the United Kingdom. The committee therefore proposes that questions to be asked during the Prime Minister's time should be 1. Submitted to the Prime Minister in advance. 2. Limited to questions on government policy. 3. Clustered together if they are related to the same policy. A summary of questions asked during Prime Minister's time should be published periodically and distributed to members, detailing a categorization of questions asked under each policy and the list of members who asked the questions. 2.8. Reorganization of Part 9 of the rules relating to questions. Part 1X of the rules that govern the various types of questions in the House is devoid of a chronological flow, yet chronology is a cardinal tenet of rules. This has partly inhibited the utilization of some procedural avenues for questions, such as questions for oral answer and questions to commissioners and chairpersons. It's against this background that a reorganization of the relevant rules, notably 42 to Rule 50, has been proposed. 2.9. Consideration of annual reports of government agencies and public corporations. Parliament periodically receives annual reports of various public entities, and in some cases, especially reports of parastatals, they are referred to Public Accounts Committee, commissions, statutory authorities, and state enterprises, or PAC-POSESE. It was noted that these annual reports usually deal with the functions and operations of these public entities, an aspect that would be best suited for sectoral committees. The consideration of annual reports should therefore be left to sectoral committees, since they spell out the operations of an entity in a given year and its inherent oversight function. 2.10. Need for policy statements to conform to Section 43 of the Access to Information Act. The Access to Information Act 2005 requires that policy statements should include a listing of requests for access to information made by the public during the previous year, indicating whether or not access was granted and the reasons for denial. The committee proposes that Rule 145 be amended to conform to the requirement of the Access to Information Act 2005. 2.11. Consideration of supplementary estimates. The rules only provide for consideration of supplementary estimates on the floor of the House under Rule 152. The committee observes that this is an omission because the procedure for considering supplementary estimates should be the same as the one for considering the annual budget. It should therefore be laid on the table, then referred to the Budget Committee and the relevant sectoral committees. The current practice is to have the Budget Committee consider the supplementary estimates. However, this committee notes a gap in this procedure because the sectoral committees that oversee the sector that benefited or is to benefit from the supplementary request has a better understanding of the financial requirements of the sector and is the one involved in scrutinizing all other aspects of the sector budget. The committee further notes that supplementary requests presented to the House must clearly state the source of funding to enable Parliament act appropriately as the case may be. For example, in the event that the source of funding is external financing, then the House should consider the loan request before supplying the supplementary budget request. The committee therefore proposes that rules be amended to clearly provide the procedure for considering a supplementary budget request. 2.12. Membership to committees. Rule 154 inter alia provides that with the exception of the Business Committee, Appointments Committee, and Budget Committee, a member shall not belong to more than 2 committees. This committee observes that in order to cater for the ramifications of the increasing number of members of Parliament, such as space constraints and exceedingly large numbers of members of Parliament on each committee, if the status quo remains the same, Membership to committees should be limited to 1 committee per member, with the exception of the Business Committee and the Budget Committee. The membership to each committee should be on annual rotational basis. The committee further argues that limiting members to belong to only 1 committee would also improve on the efficiency and effectiveness of committees, as the problem of conflicting schedules would be eliminated, hence ensuring quorum. Members would also be able to concentrate on their committee activities. 2.13, the Committee on National Economy. Rule 175 mandates the Committee on National Economy inter alia to examine and make recommendations to the House on all non-agreements required to be authorized or approved by the House under Article 159 of the Constitution. This committee observes that the loan requests are for projects that fall within sectors under the purview of sectoral committees. It therefore follows that sectoral committees have a better understanding of issues within the sectors that they supervise. The current situation is that the Committee on National Economy scrutinizes the loans without an input from the sectoral committees. This could result in ill-informed decisions. The risk is heightened by the fact that the rules do not provide for a checklist of documents that must accompany all loan requests submitted to Parliament for approval. The committee also noted that the Committee on National Economy does not consider loan agreements, but rather the terms and conditions of the loan requested for. This is so because there is no agreement at the point when the committee is scrutinizing the loan request. The committee recommends that the rules should be amended, 1, to provide for the Committee on National Economy to receive an input from the sectoral committees that oversee the sectors that are to benefit from a particular loan. 2, provide for a checklist of documents that must accompany all loan requests submitted to Parliament for approval. And 3, reflect the fact that the Committee on National Economy does not consider loan agreements, but rather the terms and conditions of the loan requested for. 2.14, functions of the Committee on Government Assurances and Implementation. One of the functions of the Committee on Government Assurances and Implementation stipulated under Rule 176 is to submit to each sectoral committee a list of government assurances that are pending fulfillment during consideration of policy statements and budget estimates. The committee, however, observes that sector allocations are made during considerations of the budget framework paper, a process that precedes consideration of the ministerial policy statements. By the time the committee is considering policy statements, it is too late to introduce new items in the budget. The committee therefore proposes that the rules should be amended to have the Committee on Government Assurances and Implementation submit the list of government assurances to the relevant committees during consideration of the budget framework paper. 2.15, functions of the Committee on Human Immunodeficiency Virus or Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome, HIV/AIDS. Rule 181 only envisages Parliament or the committee working closely with the Uganda AIDS Commission. However, the committee notes that the Committee on HIV/AIDS in its activities has to relate closely with the Ministry of Health as the responsible center for public health care service delivery. The committee therefore proposes that the rules should be amended to include the Ministry of Health as an entity that the Committee on HIV/AIDS must liaise with in the fight against HIV/AIDS. 2.16, workload of public accounts committees. Pursuant to Article 163 and in accordance with Article 90 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, Financial accountability committees are mandated to consider the Auditor General's reports in their respective jurisdictions with a view to enabling Parliament debate and take appropriate action thereto. The committees are Public Accounts Committee, Central Government, Park Central Public Accounts Committees, Local Government, and Public Accounts Committee, Commissions, Statutory Authorities, and State Enterprises. The committees are currently overwhelmed by the amount of work before them, and as a result, there is a substantial amount of backlog. In the case of Park Kosase, for example, its mandate covers 121 entities, out of which only 20 have been considered in the course of the 10th Parliament. The committee received a submission from a team of members of Parliament proposing a split of the accountability committees to enable efficiency. It, however, considered the proposal and concluded that the split of the committees will not result in efficiency if the same method of work is maintained. The committee noted that most Commonwealth parliaments have only one Public Accounts Committee and they seem to work efficiently. The committee proposes that a more detailed study of the methods of work of Public Account Committees be undertaken so as to find a more sustainable method that will ensure efficiency. 2.17 Fast-tracking implementation of parliamentary resolutions. The committee received a directive from the Speaker to examine the rules of procedure for mechanisms to ensure compliance by the executive with resolutions of Parliament. This followed the receipt of a letter from Honorable Alex Ndezi, MP for PWD, proposing amendments to the rules to include provisions that will ensure fast-tracking the implementation of the parliamentary resolutions. The Committee on Examining the Rules found that Rule 217 sufficiently serves the purpose. It provides that a minister shall submit to Parliament an action-taken report detailing what actions have been taken by the relevant ministry following the resolutions or recommendations of Parliament or committee. 2.18 Special powers of committees. Rule 205E gives parliamentary committees powers to confine for any specific periods any recalcitrant witnesses and cite any person for contempt. This committee, however, observes that this provision should be limited to confining the person for further investigation to avoid abuse. The committee recommends that the rules should be amended to provide the boundary of this rule. 2.19 Issue and service of summons. Rule 211 provides that an order to attend or to produce documents before a committee shall be notified by a summons signed by the chairperson of the committee. This provision contradicts Section 9 of Parliament Powers and Privileges Act, Cap 258, that provides for the clerk to Parliament to sign the summons under the direction of the Speaker. The committee proposes that the rules be amended to conform to the Act. 2.20 Regularization of receipt of documents in committees. The irregular practice of chairpersons, members, and some unauthorized staff receiving documents on behalf of committees has been noted. This is in contravention to Rule 212 that stipulates that no document received by the clerk of a committee shall be withdrawn or altered without the knowledge and approval of the committee. Imposes undue influence and potentially breeds mistrust in committees and may pose the risk of adulterating committee outputs. The committee proposes an amendment to Rule 212 to emphasize the need for all official documents submitted to committees to clerk to the committee. 2.21 Rules of procedure for the election of members of the East African Legislative Assembly. Under Appendix B, 1, signatures supporting nominations. The rules provide that all nomination forms shall include signatures and constituencies of not less than 20 members of Parliament of the candidate, and that a member of Parliament shall not nominate more for election to the Assembly.